wonderful ideas, suggestions for guests and topics.
Great events, programs, and
Welcome to this week's segment of Dialogue Houston. I'm your host, Lawrence Payne. To our regular viewing audience, welcome. To those joining us perhaps for the first time here for HCC's TV Dialogue Houston, we can be found now every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. and again at 6 p.m. and Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m. As always, on top of the show, let me thank you for your thoughtful calls, emails, and text messages concerning previous shows we've aired here on HCC TV Dialogue Houston. For after all, this is your community affairs, public affairs show proudly now in its 32nd season. Also want to thank you always for great suggestions and ideas for upcoming guests to be covered here on Dialogue Houston. We have a great show planned for you today. As you know, we dedicate a segment of the show every month to the Houston Public Library. It's a very special segment entitled Living in New Knowledge. And that name, of course, comes from the link card, which is your library card. And if you don't have one, you need to get one. The link card, Living in New Knowledge, allows you to explore the world of not only Houston Public Libraries, but libraries all over the place. It's a wonderful asset to have. You'll be surprised at how much you can get into and learn, how much different programming and accessibility to all kinds of things that this wonderful little free card allows you to do and to be able to access. Joining me today from Houston Public Library is Djuina Matthews and Rachael Abbott, and they're going to be talking about their work with HPL in a very special category. Houston Public Library, under the direction of Dr. Rhea Brown-Lawson, our wonderful director, is one of the large urban libraries in the city and probably the premier large urban library in the country, who has taken on this wonderful challenge of diversity, equity, and inclusion by forming its own very, very great Race and Social Justice Committee. Djuina heads that efforts for Houston Public, and she'll be telling us about that. Rachael is also a member and participant, and they're going to be telling us toward the end of the half hour the discussion about the Mentee and Mentor Program. It's just wonderful. Kind of brings little heart tugs to you when you hear them talk about it. But before we get into all of that, let me just welcome my guests and turn the show over to Djuina to tell us a little bit about not only HPL, whatever she wants to say about that, but also particularly about the work that she and her great committee has done in the time they've been formed in this great committee on race and social justice. Welcome to both of you. Djuina, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Larry. Good afternoon, everyone. So I, again, am Djuina Matthews with Houston Public Library, and the Race and Social Justice team, I'll just kind of tell you how that got going. We all recall in May of 2020, we did witness the tragic death of George Floyd, and our director, who has always had an interest in race and social justice in general, wanted to check on the team. She checked in with us, wanted to make sure everyone was doing okay, and I asked her if I could have her permission to start a conversation. And she also said, yes, you can have a conversation with people, but let's form a group because we're going to do some work. We're going to move HPL forward. We're going to make sure that we don't let this sort of thing just slide. We want to make sure that we are talking about race and social justice, not only what's going on in the world, but we want to make sure that Houston Public Library as an organization is more inclusive and equitable. And so that's how our work got started. So we'll be going at it for 3 years here later on this year. So.
Yay, great three years effort. And you have done a lot in those short 3 years, starting with not only the conversation and dialogue, but I thought something that was really doing the survey to ascertain and to get as much input from the employees as you could as to how they saw this whole area that we were creating this discussion about race and social justice. Tell us about that.
So the survey, we came up with a race and social justice survey, just a quick survey to find out how staff viewed HPL is an organization with regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The survey was given over the course of several weeks. Staff participated and were able to not only select from, disagree, strongly agree, those sorts of things, but also comment to let us know these are some of the things that we're facing within the organization. Things like having a voice, transparency, equitability in hiring, in the hiring process. So we did the survey, got the results, crunched the numbers, and discovered that staff wanted more opportunities for advancement. Staff wanted to better understand our hiring process and wanted to make sure we're accountable in terms of being equitable about opportunities. So one of the first things we did was develop a training called Unconscious Bias in Hiring Training. Everyone who participates in the hiring process is required to take that training to make sure that we are not leaning on biases, not just based on ethnicity, but affinity biases, cognitive biases, those things. And in taking those trainings, we were able to better recognize where we were leaning, and the affinity bias, of course, being one of the greatest ones that people don't recognize as a bias, making sure that we don't just identify with the person and all of a sudden they've gotten the job, right? We also developed a mentoring program, which we'll talk about in a little bit, because we wanted to invest in our team. We wanted to make sure that everyone had opportunities for advancement. The mentoring program kind of gives the inner workings, if you will, in addition to professional advice, professional development opportunities. We also, on a regular basis, seek out trainings around race and social justice for the entire staff. We want to make sure that we are being an equitable, inclusive, and sensitive organization because we do serve in one of the most diverse cities in the nation. And so we want to make sure that we are equitably servicing our customers and that we are meeting their needs and meeting them where they are. So those are just a few of the things that our race and social justice team has worked on just in a couple years.
There you go. Rachel, before we get into the whole mentee mentor discussion, just tell us in general, how do you see this? Because you've been involved with the committee from the beginning, I think, have you not? And just tell us how you see and understand the work thus far and being part of this wonderful movement, because it is a movement.
Sure. So I was in the first graduating class of the Mentor-Mentee program. And of course, I found it very impactful, very helpful. And I also heard wonderful things from my coworkers about how it gave them confidence, helped them learn new skills, and invigorated the passion that they feel for doing library work and serving our community and playing the role that we play in making Houston a more equitable and accepting place.
And serving Houston's culturally diverse communities is a challenge, a wonderful challenge and opportunity to stay on top of and be aware of. And Djuina, as you were saying, the whole idea of doing this work is that every employee, every human being has a sense of belonging. And I think that the challenge always in doing this work, as you well know, is creating a climate and culture that welcomes everyone and that welcomes everyone's input. And also because we want to, and that's where great leadership comes in the form of Dr. Lawson and yourself and others involved in this, it's a process of sustainability. It's a process of making sure you put things in place that will carry on, that does have legs, that does have institutional commitment and accountability. And this work, as we all know, those of us who've been doing it now for almost 50 years and others also, it is transformative work. It is systems change. And doing the work takes time because it is a systems change. It is a cultural shift. It is all those things that we talk about. And that's why doing this work, and as the two words that you have kind of alluded to are so important in this process, and that's trust. And the developing of relationships built on mutual trust and respect, because nothing happens without trust. And so I want to hear more about this wonderful mentee mentor program, because the way Rachel talked about it the other day, and the way you described it, and the way the mentees talked about it in relationship to the mentors, you could tell very clearly that those bonds and those relationships were being developed and established. And therefore, because that was happening, the trust level was rising. So the ability to talk about not only work issues and situations, but also to share in our personal lives, professional lives, and our public lives, we have all three, and how those things interrelate to each other by being able to have someone that you can sit and have that kind of conversation with about all those things that impact all three spheres of our lives. So Rachel, tell me a little bit more about that bonding and relationship between the mentee and the mentor.
Yeah, so I am earlier in my career in the library. I've worked for the library for about 3 years, and I was fortunate to be paired with Virginia Williams, the Assistant Chief of Staff at Central, who has worked in libraries for decades, not just in Houston, but also in New Orleans. So we are sort of at opposite ends of our careers. I'm just coming in and she has these decades of experience. And it was so wonderful to be able to learn from her, not only because she just has almost everything memorized. You know, she can tell you policy, history, names of people at the drop of a hat, but also because she was so thoughtful and she's had experiences that are still new to me. One of the reasons I really wanted to join this program and something that I hope to gain was actually, it's relevant to this, the ability to have those critical conversations, you know, with staff as an assistant manager and also with our customers, because we serve people at all walks of life, going through all sorts of different circumstances that need help accessing resources. And sometimes it can be very difficult to know what to say, to know how to help people, to know how to communicate effectively. So that was my big goal going in. And I was so grateful that Miss Virginia was always ready to talk, no matter what the issue was. She would walk me through it, walk through what does the library policy say? How can you help people? How do you be firm and compassionate at the same time? So it was really enriching. And I'm so glad that I had an opportunity to walk through that and be better prepared to help people when they come up organically.
What a great personal story. And Djuina, you had a mentee, Rosa, and when I listened to yours and I listened to Rachel and Virginia, I'm gonna be honest, I was sitting in the back of the room on the big screen on the fourth floor, and little tears came to my eye because it was, you could tell the depth of the sincerity and the seriousness of how that has touched each other's lives, in both directions, of the mentee and the mentor. Tell us about your experience.
Yes, so the program came about as a result of the survey. So the survey is helping us a lot. And one of the things that I thought was very important to have as part of the program was that we paired people together, mentees and mentors, based on the mentees' interests and the mentors self-identified like skills, things that they felt they were subject matter experts in, because we wanted it to be a good fit. We wanted the relationships to thrive. I am a gregarious personality, and my mentee is incredibly shy, and so one of the things that I thought about, she wanted to come out of her shell, and I was like, step on out. I'm happy to help you. She and I had conversations. Our first meeting, actually, we just kind of got to know each other. I thought that was important, get that bond going, start establishing that trust relationship. And, we would just do regular check-ins. I would attend her programs to support her. She would just call and check on me, just see how I was doing, because she understands that, we all get really busy. She would call me when she was nervous about an interview. So we would practice, we would do mock interviews. We would talk about all the wonderful things that she does. One of my favorite things to do for people is to be a cheerleader. And she really needed that support. And one thing that I was always telling her is, you're so much more wonderful than you think you are. And her confidence grew. She started to step out of her shell. She has become more active in programming. She's joining committees within HPL, all as a result of just the conversations that we've had. And so that was part of the whole thing. We wanted to make sure that we are getting people where they are and helping them to better engage with the organization, to become more invested in the organization. And so that was very helpful. I learned from her as she learned from me. She probably doesn't think so, but I learned to be a little more patient. I learned to dial back on the cheerleading a little bit. I didn't want to frighten her. Because I can get really excited, and it was just a wonderful experience. We visited other locations, toured other locations within the system that she was interested in, just had lunch. We would have conversations, just a quick, hey, this is what's going on with me, and how are you doing? How's your family? That sort of thing. And so I've made a new friend just at the bottom of it all. And what I love about the program as well, all of the mentors and mentees now have an extended network of people to support them.
Yes, and that to me is part of the key of this, and you said it so well. No one gets to where they are alone. We all in our life and our career have had mentors. We've all had advocates. We've all had champions who have helped us along the way in our careers and in our lives. And that's so important to have that network and to have those individuals in your corner to help you along the way. We have now done a second survey, which we're waiting for the results to tell us kind of where we're going. But to show that Houston Public is serious about this, they actually hired a consultant also to help them pull all of this together and share that person's wisdom and experience, who's been doing it in different settings also. And because I think that's it, we all learn from each other. We all learn from different experiences and people's background. And that has been helpful to the process, has it not, Djuina?
It's been extremely helpful. The consultant was able to just kind of share advice, share experiences, let us know, that we're doing great, that keeping up the work as we have has been important. And where she sees it kind of waning around the country, HPL is still on the ball. We still have it on the front burner, if you will, because it is important. I think doing this work with the Race and Social Justice team is important because we're human first and foremost. And so we need to do things that support our team. Because in supporting our team and having them feel supported and having them feel, trained and prepared to deal with different situations, that in turn helps them to better serve our communities. And that's really the point of what we are doing here at Houston Public Library, is we're working to improve and better serve communities.
Yeah, and Houston Public, because it is Houston Public Library, the fourth largest city in the country, the most diverse city in the country, but also, as we also have to be honest and say, the most segregated city of the country, almost one of the most gated community cities in the country, one of the most siloed cities in the country. So all of those things play into this, and that's why race and social justice conversations and D&I conversations are so important for the employees to have as they engage with the citizens, and in this case, since we're a public institution, the constituents, and to understand where they're all coming from in their life's journey, in their life's plights, in their understanding of their neighborhoods and their communities, and some with more object poverty than others, some with some more challenges than others, some with systemic issues, et cetera, institutional issues. And so it's all important to have that lens and filter, as Djuina was saying on Tuesday, to have that lens and experience to be able to view things from other people's perspectives, through other people's eyes, through other people's experiences, so that we have a rounded kind of understanding about each other as human beings, and therefore the complexity of what it really means to be a fully human being, because we are very complex individuals. And so I think that this work is so vital and so important. And you've touched on some of the things. Again, I just want to reiterate, it is a sense about belonging. It is about feeling valued. It is about feeling comfortable when you express your opinion. It's about feeling accepted, civility, kindness, compassion, and empathy. And empathy. And the road to equity is empathy. How we get to equity is through empathy. And how do we get through empathy? Is through relationships. So there's a whole connection here of the process of how these things work together. And that's why it's so exciting to see Houston Public do it in a way that really understands all those components and all those elements and put them together. I want to give you both a couple of minutes, well, about a minute each, to kind of make sure you have time to mention and talk about and bring up anything that you haven't talked about or mentioned that you want to make sure you get out there, this is your time. So please take it and go for it. Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So I am grateful that we are in an organization that understands the importance of this. Again, it's important that we are better able to serve our customers, and having these conversations, understanding the importance of inclusion, understanding that we are all different, and that's what makes Houston a wonderful city. That feeds into how we serve our public. Our staff, I'm proud to say at HPL, reflects the community. We have a rich mixture of staff in our locations, and I think recognizing that and the importance of that is just amazing. Other library systems aren't as concerned, other organizations aren't as concerned. And so very fortunate to be working with Houston Public Library and getting to do this wonderful, amazing work that doesn't always feel like work because it is so fulfilling.
Thank you. Correct. Rachel?
Yeah, I want to echo a lot of what Djuina said. The work that we do to have these critical conversations and to better our organization aren't just for us on the inside, but it's for our whole community. We want to have services and resources and programs and books and online elements that are for everyone in the city of Houston. And that is our goal. We want to be a truly public library, a library that's for the people, for Houston residents, no matter what walk of life they're coming from. So if anyone is watching this and unsure of what we offer, just give one of us a call or stop by a branch, and we will help connect you, link you to all the great resources that we have to offer.
I want to thank you both for being on Dialogue Houston, particularly this very important segment of Dialogue Houston, HPL segment on living in new knowledge. And I think we've imparted some of that. Let me just share a few closing comments. In today's work world related and in our civic life, no one wants to feel excluded. No one wants to live in ambiguity. No one wants to feel ignored, feel alienated, or devalued. And that's why this type of work is so important. Whether we're doing it within the context of Houston Public Library or the City of Houston, or in corporations or in nonprofits, or in life general. It is important because in a city like Houston, with its diversity, we are going to have to understand that, yes, we are diverse, and that's only the first step. It is about inclusion, but it is also about equity. And equity of the three is always the hardest to talk about and to deal with. But we have to get clear on the equity. It is interesting that the process of opening the mind to being able to understand why equity is so important for all human beings, because we were not meant just to survive as human beings, nor even to thrive. Human beings were meant to flourish, and to flourish to the fullness of their God-given potential. And that's why any barrier or obstacle that keeps human beings from flourishing to the fullest of their God-given potential must be dealt with and must be addressed. And so it is very important that we do that in a way that allows us all to be able to have eyes and ears and minds and hearts that hear, that sees, that listens, that grow, to change, to give, to be open to the other, to understand from the other's perspective. We say in this work, we're all entitled to our own opinion, perspective, opinion, and viewpoint. We're not entitled to our own fact, and we're not entitled to our own data. And so to cut through a lot of that is important. And that's why Djuina and Rachael understand that part of this wonderful process has been a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversation, so that people can get out exactly what their true thoughts and feelings are and emotions. And sometimes you got to give it a second and third chance because it's not going to come out the first time. It's not going to come out the right way. I don't feel comfortable enough yet to say what I really want to say. But over time, as trust develops, then I'm more able to do that. And so this work is so important going forward. It is the cornerstone, I think, of what's going to make Houston and the society itself and democracy great. It is the democratic processes at work in a civic environment, in a work environment, in any environment. And so as we talk about empathy and equity going forward in relationships, it is clear that as we talk about the equity piece is going to be important. So let me end with this because I want to share it, and we're going to be doing some more with it online so people can do it. Houston Public Library has a series called Critical Conversations. We just had one for Women's History Month, empowering women as an engine of the economy. We had this great speaker a few days ago, Emily Ryder Permeter, who is with the Federal Reserve Bank out of Dallas. And she gave all kinds of data and statistics about women in the workplace and about equity, et cetera. But here's the one that I want to share because it's the one that caught everybody's attention. It will take until 2041 for Asian women to have pay equity and parity at the given rate, at the going rate with white males. 2041. They'll get there. It's not that far away. But here's the other side of it. For women of color, for Black and Hispanic women, at the current rate, it will take 300 to 400 years. Yes, I said 300 to 400 years for African American Hispanic women to reach pay parity and equity with white males. And we all know that's because of a long history of poverty, of racism, of slavery, even going back that far. And so the work ahead in dialogue about inclusion, and as we said in that conference the other night, so goes the woman, so goes the country, so goes the family. So as we talk about these issues going forward, it's so important to keep that whole connection between diversity, equity, inclusion together. And the equity part is probably the glue that's going to hold this stuff together going forward or not. So it's so important to do. And that's why the work that Houston Public Library, along with all the others who are involved in this work of racial and social justice, is so important. I commend again Djuina and her wonderful task force and committee of Houston Public Library, Dr. Lawson, our great leader, because it is about leadership. It's always about leadership who really gets into this for the long haul. So we'll continue to work on this. We'll keep you posted, not only what HPL is doing, but what we're doing, others are doing, because we have a lot of guests on coming up in the future about equity, diversity, and inclusion. As always, I want to thank you for being part of this week's discussion on Dialogue Houston. We want you always to remain safe and be well. And until we come together again very soon, as always, peace, power, and love.